All right, lately, well, not lately, it's just ever since I moved to Thailand, I keep getting this question. Would you ever move back to the Philippines? And so today I'll answer that. And I think if you watch my videos on a regular basis, well, I've just got my retirement visa, so you're probably already assuming that the answer would be no. But let me get a little more detailed into it. And this is not a video that where I'm going to be bashing the Philippines. In fact, actually the opposite. I'll actually go over some of the things that I like and that I actually miss in the Philippines. But I will tell you what I genuinely miss about the Philippines, what Bangkok or in Thailand clearly do better, and whether I could ever see myself moving back to the Philippines again. Because both of these countries do have some strengths, but they are very different lifestyles. So stick around for today's video.
Bangkok nights and Bali shores. Sick of dreaming, want something more. Pack your bags, don't hesitate. Gio, let's go before it's too late. Time keeps slipping.
All right, let's go ahead and start off with kind of a section here, and that is what do I miss about the Philippines? So one, and this kind of goes hand in hand with English, I think, because I think in Thailand, if they spoke English, then it would be a little bit of a different situation. But because the majority of them don't, or at least fluent English, I would say the biggest thing I miss are the people of the Philippines. I think the social atmosphere is just different. You can stop and talk to anybody. People will wave at you, like in the small provinces when you're driving by on a motorbike. They talk to you, they're curious. They like to ask a lot of questions and even start conversations. I've talked to so many Filipinos just standing in a line or stopping for gas or whatever. Even at a checkpoint one time, they pulled me off to the side. He didn't even want to see my license or my registration or anything. He just wanted to know how much I paid for my custom seat and where I got it. That was it. He didn't even care about my driver's license or the registration. And so there is a warmth there that is hard to explain unless you've lived there long term. For example, a time when I not broke down, but in the mountains, I got a flat tire. And crazy enough, the rental car that I had did not have a jack in the back. Well, all of a sudden, all these people from all these little farms and stuff were gathering around, and they all got together and they knew what guy owned a car in the little village there, and they went off and went to his house, someone on a motorbike, and they went and got the jack and they fixed my tire. They put on the new spare, and I was able to get back home. And they didn't even want any money. I gave them money, but after 2 or 3 times, they finally took it. And but just out of the kindness of the heart, and to chat with a foreigner, I guess. But that stuff doesn't happen everywhere. And of course, again, this all comes down to the English level. Now, when you get way out in the provinces and stuff, I don't want people to assume that they all speak English so fluently in the Philippines, because they don't always do. But to be able to joke around naturally, build friendships, handle everyday situations without stress. Well, I can't say without stress because they're pretty inefficient in a lot of different ways as well. But in Thailand, people are very polite, very respectful. I love that about Thailand. But the Philippines feels more social and conversational. And that I definitely miss. Another huge thing that I miss is the motorbike lifestyle that I had. I owned a motorbike for pretty much the entire time that I lived in the Philippines, and I really enjoyed just taking off and finding like a waterfall way off in the nature. Again, kids coming out and waving at you, and stopping and asking for directions, and you're able to talk to them, communicate. You try that in Thailand, that's going to be a little difficult. You're going to need your Google Translate for sure. But the Philippines is great for exploration and random road trips. It can be dangerous as well, and the road's not so great. But overall, if you're safe and you know what you're doing, it can be fine. But places like Negros, Cebu, even Mindanao, Bohol, Siquijor, Camotes, you can just hop on a motorbike and go for hours and hours and hours and find great nature spots and lookout points and little coves that are great for swimming. Mountains, coastlines, small villages, waterfalls, and beautiful ocean views. And some of my favorite memories in the Philippines, honestly, were just random motorbike trips and finding little, nature gems, just talking to locals. I was looking for a certain waterfall or something, and they would say, "Oh, I don't know where that is, but if you go up this road and turn right on the dirt road, follow it down, you'll see there's a waterfall that you can get to." And you'd go to these waterfalls, and there's like nobody there. Just pristine, beautiful waterfalls that no one even knows about. So I guess that feeling of freedom is something I do miss. Now, I do have freedom here. I love to be able to hop on the BTS very inexpensively and just hop off in different neighborhoods in Thailand and kind of explore. And the further you get out from the tourist areas, the Anut and Ekamai and Pampang and Nana, the more it's going to be where just the locals live. And that's where you get the cheaper prices. Sometimes foreigners are looking for the real inexpensive prices for condos and apartments. Well, that's where you find it, but also less English and less Western type restaurants and amenities and things like that, but still very nice. But Bangkok is definitely exciting. It's just a mega city. But when you live in your neighborhood, it doesn't feel like such a big city anymore. I really know this neighborhood now, and all the little coffee shops and restaurants and the malls and the grocery store. And I even know the people now that work in those places, and it's, they start to recognize you. So it becomes really familiar, and it becomes much smaller. But I would say the Philippines gave me a more slower and a more adventurous lifestyle. I'm not saying that can't be found in Thailand. You probably would have to move further out. But again, the English barrier is something I just really don't want to deal with. And in Bangkok, the English for me is not a problem whatsoever. I get around just fine with English here. I'm learning Thai words as I go here, so I can order food and ask how much something is, and starting to learn the numbers. So yeah. So the third thing would be dating in relationships. I don't think it's really a big secret that dating, of course, is going to be easier in the Philippines. Age gap is more of a thing. And of course, just the English factor alone all of a sudden opens up pretty much the whole country of the Philippines and any single women, because you can communicate for the most part. There's some that don't speak great English again. But in Thailand, it's hard. I've been on dates where I thought they spoke English. We're communicating in English on the dating app, but it turns out they were just using a translator. So now I know to ask them. And so I've been on a date before where it was pretty much Google Translate, and I just couldn't see myself in any kind of long term with someone who we have to communicate through a translator. I mean, we could never sit down and just enjoy a movie together. It would just, I would need somebody who's got at least a basic understanding of English, something to build upon, where we can communicate a bit and then her English can improve. But communication matters a lot, and that's a big reason I think people choose the Philippines, is the English factor. It probably is the number one reason. And then I guess number two would be dating. The easy tourist visa in the Philippines, because a lot of people don't get onto a retirement visa, or maybe they just don't have the money to do it, but they stay on that tourist visa in the Philippines forever. I would say the majority of expats in the Philippines are probably on that and just stay on that. And I do find Filipinos to be warm, very caring, very affectionate, and maybe a little bit more relationship-oriented than Thai girls. Not to say that I know plenty of guys who are in relationship with Thai girls, and they're very affectionate and loving. But I think overall Filipinos are a bit more. Now, obviously, every person's different. Every country has its good and its bad experiences. But overall, I found dating in the Philippines easier to navigate than many other places in Southeast Asia. So, section 2, and that is, what does Bangkok actually do better? And for me, it is the infrastructure and the daily convenience. And this is where Bangkok, or in Thailand, clearly wins. And once you experience the infrastructure in Bangkok or Thailand, it's hard to go backwards. And that's what it feels like if you go back to the Philippines. You really feel like you're going backwards 20 years. Just everything here feels more modern, more efficient. The food quality is better. The BTS and MRT systems are amazing. The roads are better. The shopping malls are world class. The sidewalks actually exist. And I'm big into walking. I love to get my 10,000 steps. I love to walk around the city. I love to explore, and I like to do it safely without being hit by a car or a motorbike. But daily life just feels a lot smoother here. You waste less time dealing with problems. In the Philippines, there's always some kind of bureaucracy that it just took forever to get stuff done. Slow grocery lines, just so much paperwork to be done for simple tasks. It just seemed crazy. And that convenience definitely adds up over time. The second thing would be hospitals and healthcare. Thailand's healthcare system is probably one of the biggest benefits for older expats living here in Thailand. It's excellent. You don't have to worry about them trying to figure out, do you have cash or do you have insurance while you're dying on a gurney in the emergency room. No, they're going to stabilize you, and then they're going to figure out the bills. Now, in the Philippines, well, you'll probably die on the gurney while they're trying to figure out, hey, how can we get payment from this guy? They're trying to collect your payment while you're suffering a massive heart attack on the gurney. But the hospitals here in Bangkok are impressive. They're modern, they're organized, they're efficient, fast. And healthcare is something that younger travelers just kind of ignore because it's just not really a thing for them at this point in their life. But, when you get over 50, you start thinking about these things. Okay, what if I were to have a heart attack? Okay, I think about that in the Philippines, and I was like, if I have a heart attack, I'm probably done. That's it, I mean, I doubt very much that I would get to the hospital in time for them to stabilize me. Maybe, if I'm lucky. And that's only after they figured out whether I have cash or not to pay the bill. But having reliable hospitals and healthcare nearby really gives peace of mind. And there's one right next to my condo. And I've already used it once, and it's excellent. And Bangkok really excels in this area. And another one is internet, utilities, and reliability. And this is another area where Bangkok is simply on another level. After 9 months of living here now, I've never had a power outage, never had a water outage, never had an internet outage. I always have 5G on my phone. And so I just don't have to deal with those issues that seem to be a weekly thing in the Philippines. I went 3 days without water one time. I went 10 days without internet. I went so many times, like 16 hours without electric, and multiple power outages while you're watching a movie at home to the point where you just finally say, I give up, I'm just going to bed. And it's just infuriating and frustrating. But here things just work consistently. And honestly, consistency matters more than people realize. And that's especially if you work online like I do, where I'm constantly uploading videos, or I'm making thumbnails, or planning out my next trip, or just streaming a movie, just all that stuff. It just really makes a difference. And over time, that wears you down in the Philippines, the constant outages of water, electric, internet. And the interruptions just become mentally exhausting. And then, you get an all-day brownout, which I would get a couple times a month sometimes in Dumaguete. And I would have to go and plan out events, that maybe I'll spend all day at this resort, and you got to spend extra money or whatever. But sometimes it's just kind of a pain. But Bangkok removes all of that stress that I used to have in the Philippines. So for me, the overall quality of life is better in Bangkok. And at this stage in my life, I value low stress more than I used to. And Bangkok offers a very comfortable lifestyle. Everything is accessible. Everything is convenient. Everything feels more organized. You can still have excitement here, but you also have stability. And that combination is really hard to beat. So the $1 million question, would I ever move back to the Philippines? And after comparing both countries, you can see there are positives and there are negatives for both countries. But honestly, no, I wouldn't. Will I visit the Philippines again? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a great place to go visit and take little motorbike trips and explore different islands. I think it's fantastic for that. I don't see myself ever spending even more than 30 days at a time, because I don't even want to deal with the immigration. As long as it's 30 days visa free, that's probably what I would utilize. I would go there and I would spend a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 28 days, but I would never go past the 30-day mark. But especially for, like motorbike trips, Philippines is a lot of fun. Island life, there's great content creation there. Visiting friends, escaping big city life for a while on a small island. But full-time, no. Because right now, Bangkok just fits my life really well. Maybe at some point, maybe I move to some smaller city in Thailand. That's always a possibility. But as of right now, Bangkok kind of fits the bill. The infrastructure, the healthcare, internet, the transportation, and the great food choices. And the reliability that makes everyday living just much simpler. And once you get used to that level of comfort, it's really difficult to give that up. But emotionally, Philippines will still have a special place in my heart, especially after 9 years of living there, of course. I do like the people. I love the nature, even though sometimes I get a little upset. I wish they would take better care of it instead of throwing around so much trash and things like that. I'm not saying they don't do that in Thailand too, but it seems to be better here anyway. But again, at the end of the day, both countries offer something different. The Philippines offers adventure, warmth, friendly people, island life, freedom, simplicity, better English, better dating overall. But Bangkok offers stability, convenience, better infrastructure, better healthcare, better food quality, better transportation, and higher daily comfort. And for me, that matters more than those other things. Now, before, at one point in my life, those other things mattered more. And so Philippines was a better choice at that point in my life. But as I get older, these other things mean more to me. And so Bangkok wins out. So let me know in the comments if you've spent time in both countries. Which country do you prefer at this point in your life? And for what reasons? And what matters more, adventure, convenience, dating? What is the most important thing in your life? I'd love to hear. Or rather, which matters more to you at this stage in your life? All right, guys, so I appreciate you watching, and I will see everyone in the next video. Ciao.
Bangkok nights in Bali shores. Sick of dreaming, want something more. Pack your bags, don't hesitate. Gio, let's go before it's too late. Time keeps slipping away from us. Keep living like this. Away